opening up all of the product that I have so far for this series, I decided to sit down and actually sort, order, and overall look through all of the cards and try to see if I could finally make a deck. I will say that in this you will see one card that I haven't shown on this series, which is a copy of Blackluster Soldier that I actually opened up in a Shaddoll structure deck on my Instagram channel. But other than that, everything that you see in this deck profile today will ultimately be cards that we've pulled on this series so far. Of course, I tend to focus on putting these stronger cards, trying to sort out what's good between what's bad, for the biggest issue with the whole GOAT format card pool in general is that most of the cards are not usable, especially with all of the kind of deck profiles or card lists rather that are in GOAT format are usually quite the same or very similar in terms of card pool, since some cards are much better than others. All of these cards made me realize that even though we have a decent amount of cards to work with that are actually playable, it's kind of difficult to make one cohesive strategy, especially because I'm missing a lot of quite staple cards, to be honest. Okay guys, so here's a little mini deck profile for you. I'm not going to super go in depth with the cards, since if you're watching this you probably are well aware what a lot of these cards do. The win condition of this deck, if we're being honest, is that my opponent kind of realizes that this is for a YouTube video and feels pity on me and maybe gives me a win or something of that nature. You'll notice I just put in all of the strongish cards in this deck that I have currently and tried to make some semblance of a chaos build that's missing a lot of key components. Let's just get into it and you can see what I'm talking about. So first off, we play the one-ofs of Blackluster Soldier, Envoy of the Beginning, and Dark Magician of Chaos. These are our two boss monsters of the deck. We don't really swarm much in this deck, so Dark Magician of Chaos probably won't be summoned much, but at least it's a dark to go to the graveyard if anything. Next up, we have a lot of flip effects going on. So first up, I have one Hain because it's pretty decent, one Penguin Soldier because it's a better version of Hain, one Old Vindictive Magician because it's a pretty decent one for one as well as these others are, one Magical Merchant because we only have one copy, one Cyberjar because it's probably our best, most blowout flip monster of the deck, and then finally one Iron Blacksmith Kotetsu who can search out our Snatch Steal, which is one of the strongest and most playable one-of cards in this deck. Next up, for just some beaters, we have two Pitch Black Warwolf. I'm unnaturally afraid of Sakuretsu armor from when I was a kid playing Yu-Gi-Oh! So this card actually makes a lot of sense to me, and plus the pool of which I'm getting cards from isn't that much, so it's the best I got right now. Followed by two Zambira the Dark. The fact that he can't attack directly definitely hurts a little bit, and also the fact that he weakens himself every time he defeats a monster, but right out the gate being 2100 attack, he's definitely a decent beater, especially in this deck. Another card, probably our best battle monster, is Azura Priest, so that way we can get over any GOAT control decks, hopefully, with the one-of Azura Priest teched in here. And then another one-of we have is Sangan, a nice little searcher. And then finally, to round it off, we have a card in the deck that I like in the deck, but also there's only one way to special summon it to get its effect off, but I still run two Sacred Crane, just because as this deck evolves, as you're well aware, sealed only decks evolve, I definitely think this will be much more utilized in later versions of this deck. Next up to the spell and traps. So for the spells, we just have the one Mystical Space Typhoon, 1 Heavy Storm, 1 Snatch Steal, and 1 Giant Trunade, which will make sense once we get to our trap cards, since we're running quite a few Floodgates, since I actually got lucky and pulled some Floodgates, as you've seen in this episode. Next up, we play 1 Reasoning, because we only have 1 copy so far in this pool of cards. 3 Scapegoat, just because the namesake, and also just as a defensive card really in this deck, as opposed to the whole metamorphosis into an extra deck, or into Thousand Eyes Restrict. And then 3 Book of Moon, just again, a defensive strategy, plus if we happen to be able to flip summon something, we can flip it back down to use it again. I'm not sure how loud you can hear it, but Peach right now is being very loud. So this is the Peach cam, literally right in the middle of the deck profile. She decides to eat her lettuce I gave her this morning. So we can just watch her for a sec, finish up, so that way she can be quiet and I can continue on with our trap lineup. Oh, hello Peach, thank you. Thank you, Peach, yeah. Ooh. Okay, she got scared, now let's move on. So on to the trap cards, we have 1 Call of the Haunted here, 1 Torrential Tribute, and 1 Mirror Force. Call of the Haunted, I think, is the only interaction in this deck that brings out Sacred Crane. Torrential Tribute and Mirror Force are just used defensively, slash of course like blowouts on your opponent. 1 Reckless Greed, because I haven't been too lucky with getting any of the broken draw spells that are in this format. And then the reason we play Heavy Trunade, or Giant Trunade, sorry. Giant Trunade is because we have 1 Skill Drain, 1 Gravity Bind, and 1 Begone Knave, purely, again, defensively. I want to stay alive as much as possible with this deck, and these just help me hang on by that singular thread. Finally, 2 more 3-ofs is 3 Zero Gravity, to go with the theme of Please Don't Kill Me, and finally, 3 Compulse, again, just to get my opponent's monsters away from me. As you can see by the missing space over here, we actually don't have any extra deck with this deck. So this is purely just 40 cards you bring to a tournament and hopefully leave with some shred of dignity. Ultimately, this isn't the best deck. It definitely isn't going to be any GOAT format meta relevant strategy or anything of that nature. It's just kind of mashing together the best cards I had available and hopefully confusing my opponent enough to win. In this episode, it's just going to be the deck profile for you guys. It's kind of a shorter one on the series, just to kind of show you a deck, since we are 4 episodes in by now. Ultimately, the reason why we haven't had an opening in this episode can actually be quite a simple explanation, but I'll let this next segment show you why. What's good, YouTube? And today I have a very special announcement to make. I'm broke.